continuous delivery, pushing very often without degrading the stability, the quality. How do you do that when you're a Flutter mobile developer? If it was just about continuous coding, I would have several implementations to propose. Everyone can have a different implementation with more coffee, less sleep, what could go wrong, right? But it's not only about coding new features, it's also about delivering. It's also about testing, building, testing, deploying. We think about the stores, the reviews, and everything. So we'll review all of these aspects of delivering. And let's start with the first good decision of your project, which is to choose Flutter.
Hi everyone, we are glad to be here again at Flutter Heroes. And today we will go through a journey to continuous delivery with Flutter. Today I'm with my fellow Wing staff engineer, François Nollen, and I'm Adrian, and we're both big Flutter enthusiasts.
What's the agenda, Adrien?
Today we'll talk about continuous delivery, we will go through testing, we'll go through dealing with stores, going beta, and also using new tools called Shorebird, and finally we'll talk about feature flags.
And let's start with our journey to continuous delivery. Yes. And for this journey, we start by going back in time. Oh, maybe too far in time. Who's doing waterfall today? Nowadays? No. Oh, yeah, no. Oh, I'm done with waterfall. But a long time ago, everyone was doing it. So the idea was to plan everything in details for months. Then to develop, it took months too. Then to test and deploy. And maybe at the end of the year, if there was no problem, our users got a release. So everyone was happy with that until Agile Manifesto came. And in 2009, there was this amazing talk at the Velocity conference. It was named More Than 10 Deploys Per Day. And it was about the engineering practices at Flickr. And they were sharing that the engineers were committing to production as simply as pushing a button. They were doing it several times a day. There was much trust between dev and ops, and very surprisingly, their quality in production and their availability wasn't lower than the rest of the teams at Yahoo. So now there are the principles of continuous delivery we all know, I guess, which is to work by small increments, to commit as much, as often as possible to production with small batches of code very, very often. Actually, we now have 10 years of state of DevOps reports. It's a research group, the DevOps Research Assessment Group, now backed by Google, which is collecting data every year about tens of thousands of organizations and dev teams, and what makes their success, their business performance. And what have we learned? The practices that make the difference. We have learned that there's a strong correlation between their success, their business performance, and the performance of their delivery, the way they deliver. In particular, 4 metrics. I'm sure you know them. They are called the DORA metrics. 2 of them are about velocity, speed, due release, and frequency of deployment. Due release once per month, per week, per day, maybe more. And you have 2 metrics which are about stability, quality. The idea is it would be easy to optimize one of the metrics, the velocity metrics, but degrading the quality, and that's not what you want. It even goes further, and you can use the research data collected to categorize and having a benchmark, and you can benchmark yourself depending on those metrics. For instance, the best performers, they release several times a day. It takes them less than 1 day to release, to push to production. Their failure rate is lower than 5%, And in case of a problem, it takes less than 1 hour to recover. So, continuous delivery, pushing very often without degrading the stability, the quality. How do you do that when you're a Flutter mobile developer? If it was just about continuous coding, I would have several implementations to propose. Everyone can have a different implementation with more coffee, less sleep, what could go wrong, right? But it's not only about coding new features, it's also about delivering, it's also about testing, building, testing, deploying. We think about the stores, the reviews, and everything. So we'll review all of these aspects of delivering. And let's start with the first good decision of your project, which is to choose Flutter. Flutter is a really great platform. First, because as a cross-platform technology, you write less code. You spend less time monitoring multiple stacks, and that's the case for our application. If, like us, you work on large applications with 3 million visits a day and dozens of dev teams and hundreds of stories ready to push to production each week, what's interesting is 90% of the mobile code is cross-platform, so we don't spend time writing everything twice. And this way, we could launch on time. That's a story we shared with you 2 years ago at Flutter Heroes. And this way, we have a major release every week on this application. So choosing Flutter was really a good choice to start with. And if you want to go to know more, we are very proud. Last year, we had a showcase published on Flutter Dev. Thanks to the Flutter team, always supportive, so don't hesitate to have a look. And once the feature is coded, the bug fixes is coded, there is another question, which is to deploy it, to push it, to test it, to build pipelines. So if we look at our pipeline, essentially it's linting, compiling, running tests, generating code, running more tests, every type of tests, and deploying, obviously, and you have to automate and try to automate everything. So Adrien, which options do we have to do that?
Well, you have different options and partners. If you want to go with GitHub, you have a lot of GitHub action ready for you to help you to build classical pipelines. We use GitHub action to build a lot of plugins of open source for Flutter. And so, because we open source everything, you can go check how we build this and can inspire you. Or you can opt also for all-in-one solution like Bitrise, CodeMagic, etc. And so is a small list of plugins we're sharing with you on Pub, like Google Wallet or Flutter Eco Mode we talked about last year at Flutter Heroes. At SNCF Connect, we use our own GitLab on-prem to build our application with Kubernetes clusters. So we will dive into some technologies, most of them open source, that we think are the most adapted to build Flutter apps. So for a Flutter job, you will need an image to build and to test. We recommend using light images like Alpine for a base. And then you can tailor your installation and add Very Good, for example, which will speed up your testing. You can add Sonar, and then you can put some Android tools when you need to build the application and to sign it. You can find also alternatives with Android already built in the image. For iOS, you have also different options. You have machines on Amazon. We're using MaxStadium Orca, which is providing a tool called Packer, which helps us build custom images. And the same way, we tailored exactly the image we need to build our app and to test our Goldens, for example. In your journey to build an application, you will probably generate code. Don't forget to check that the code generation has been made in your project to avoid some possible runtime exception later. Don't forget to regen your root, to regen your HTTP clients from your backend. Also, you should try to analyze and lint your application in your CI. Use firstly local hooks and then try to lint everything in CIs. For us, it takes 5 minutes to run in 250 lines of code to make Flutter analyze on all our code. Sorry. We've discussed last year also the size of our application. Try to leverage all the Gradle techniques, share caches between jobs, share caches for pub, for Gradle. Try to use the offline pub mode. If you use cache, you will gain many time in your builds. You can also optimize Dart commands with special flags if you need to hunt which part of your build is taking time. And remove useless ABIs, use WebP images. And don't forget to check also the size of the app you're building with bundled tool, for example. Do it before sending to stores. You may have a bad surprise the day you want to go to production, not checking the size of your app.
It's a good habit to monitor that on a regular basis.
Finally, you may need to deploy for internal testing. We've used App Center for many years, and we thank Microsoft for this very good tool. They are stopping in March this year, and you will find plenty of other tools for replacement, like App Library or Firebase app distribution.
And so far, you've talked about building, compiling, pushing to an internal store, for instance, but not much about testing, and testing is important, right? Because if you push to production every day, multiple times a day, you have to test everything multiple times a day. You don't want to degrade the quality, the stability of your production for your users. So obviously, I go very quickly on this. We already shared this. We have our own pyramid of tests, and so do you, I'm sure. Just focus on the golden, because thank you, Flutter, for golden tests. We love them. We use them for everything. So like everyone else, we use them to detect visual regressions, but also to test our theme, the colors, the dark mode, the light mode, the size of everything, and even for accessibility. That's very important to test, to use golden test to test how it renders on different devices. And even that's not only for accessibility, but that's also to prevent all devices not to work well with, render well your application. So many benefits you can find by using golden for everything. That's about the end-to-end test.
Yes, we run thousands of UI tests every day in our CI to secure releases or on demand. You can find plenty of frameworks and tools to achieve this on the market. We use a lot of Appium, which was great with Flutter, but you can also take a look at tools like Patrol, who now has a hot reload mode to build your test. And every day, new tools powered by AI are coming to the market, so try them, make end-to-end tests. It's also very...
We forgot the code static analysis.
Yes, it's also very important to measure the code quality and vulnerabilities of your app. So for that, you have, again, different options. There was a Flutter plugin open source by Inside App to analyze Flutter code. You now have a Dart built-in SonarQube, but it will only analyze Dart, not Flutter widget, etc. If you want something more specific, you can take a look at Dart code metrics. It will give you complexity about your widgets, about streaming, etc. in Flutter.
And as a conclusion, right? Yes. After 2 years or 3 years, 4 years, or
3 years.
3 years in production, improving, adding things to the pipeline, adding tests. We now have 10,000 tests. We had 3,000 2 years ago when we were there.
Yes, it is.
We still have an acceptable build time, and everything is great.
Yes. Get
all
5
these tests.
jobs, 15 minutes each job.
It's acceptable, and thanks to people in the team like
Yes.
Abdelaziz Gassemi,
Thanks,
who-
Abdelaziz.
who have improved the pipeline, always improving the pipeline, improving the build, improving the test execution. So it's continuous effort to have a pipeline really efficient. Oh, sorry.
You're going back again, François.
Yes, back in time, too many times. And you mentioned the internal platforms to deploy, but obviously now we want to go to the stores. And there are many stores, but we'll focus on the Play Store and App Store. If you have a look at a short history of stores, and I made a selection, you should remember that they were created in 2008 with several hundred applications each. And the staff-reviewed app submissions have been added in 2015. And since then, regularly, very regularly, you got new rules, new policies, new requirements, new guidelines, and that's really great. These platforms are really great, always improving, always more features, always more personalization. And what I wanted to pin there is that these huge marketplaces, they got more features, but also changes very regularly. So you have to know them, to master them. And some of the steps, you can't control them, like the staff-reviewed submission. So can you tell us about the reviews in particular?
Yes, no stores like Play Stores propose features to help you deliver better experiences for your clients. They will give you insight about stability, performances, accessibility. For example, in this screen, they will show, you can see that there is a missing label on the animation for accessibility. So this is another net at the end of your delivery to tell you you missed something in your test. There may be a problem there. Take a look. You will also have to choose your rollout strategy. They are different on iOS and Android. On Android, you can adjust the deploy percentage at your wishes. You have full control. You've got to find a good balance between your user traffic so you can have enough volumes to analyze your crashes in working hours, if you can. And do not roll out at 100% or you won't be able to stop the release propagation. So unless you're very sure of this release, don't put it 100% at the beginning.
So we recommend the 99%, but not the 100%.
Not the 100. And on iOS, there is a similar working process that can be automated on a week basis. Other things you should consider when going to production is the forced app or the updates or the flexible updates for your customers. We try to always keep an access to the vital features of our app. So for us, it's the tickets. Even if we need to force an update, we always give a way to our users to see their train tickets so they can travel. So choose the best, what is the best for your business. Also, you will have to sign your app. For Android, you've got different ways to do that. You may need to own your keys so you can sign third parties SDK of partners, but you may just delegate everything to Google and they will do all the job for you. And in iOS ecosystem, you've got also to choose between the in-house signature, the ad hoc, the signature for the stores. It's quite complicated to handle auto certificates, but you have to dive in because you have to choose what's the best for your users. It depends if you're delivering to B2C, B2B, in your enterprise, etc. Take also a look at stores' additional securities like Play Integrity. that give you critical information about the device calling your API, assuring you the request has been emitted by a legitimate version of your app. So it's a very good addition for the Play Store.
And there are many options you've just reviewed and mentioned, many things and quite a complexity to learn everything about that, many options to submit, to deploy, to roll out. So if you start your journey with store deployment, that's a good idea to check the Flutter dev docs. You have this page on continuous delivery on Flutter, and you'll find many of the tools which can make it easier for you to submit to stores, and you'll find many informations about these options and how to put them, manage them programmatically. One of the very interesting tools to interact with the stores is fastlane.
Yes, fastlane is a quite old tool, actually.
Who is using fastlane? Yes.
Great.
Oh, not everyone.
And so it will ease your life to push to stores or alternative providers like App Livery. And you can so that there are, like we said before, options for rollout strategies, and you can choose channel, etc., where you send your application.
So there are other very good tools to do that, but you'll find the options and the rollout and everything there programmatically in the descriptors. That's nice. That works really well. And now we say, and we were wondering, and last year, at the beginning of last year, we were really wondering, is the mobile store, the stores, are they the limit for us? Because we want to do continuous delivery, we want to push to production every day, multiple times a day, but it seems impossible to push, to submit to the stores and have the review, have the feedback and roll out and do everything every day. We just felt it was impossible. And that's why we shared this talk with you. After improving the pipelines, after having the impression that we were blocked with this limit of the stores, we began to think differently and found other solutions, other options. One of them is, if I click not on the right button, one of them is to leverage the beta mechanisms, which is to deploy to specific group of users before the others.
Yes, François. So yes, leverage other channels on the stores, like the alpha, the open beta, the closed beta, so you can have feedback from your users and analyze crashes before you have go to full production. There is similar mechanism for iOS of closed beta testing.
And for SNCF Connect, we also implemented our own beta mechanism in the app. So it's features which are available in advance and available to specific users, which can be internal users inside the company, but also users, customers from our customer community program. So we enroll them, and they have access to more features. They can access and choose the features they are ready to test. So it's completely custom beta mechanism inside the application. And I wanted to ask you, who is using the beta channels and the beta mechanism of the stores? Very few of you, and I guess no one is having its own custom beta mechanism, maybe? Raise the hand. No. So that can be an idea. It's interesting to get more feedback before deploying to everyone. Another great tool we wanted to present to you is Shorebird.
Shorebird, yes. Is anybody in the room using Shorebird? Oh, okay.
And who knows about Shorebird without using it?
Okay.
Not very few of you.
So why Shorebird? Code push is still I've checked yesterday, the #1 issue on the Flutter repository in terms of like. And so code push is a different way to push code, push patches to production, not using store, but directly pushing code in your client application. It was developed a lot by Microsoft with React Native, and now we have it with Shorebird for Flutter. And so, to be compliant with stores about permission to change interpreted code in production, Flutter needed to be forked, giving Shorebird with an additional Dart compiler and an additional interpreter, and a custom engine to load patches. So you can see a great talk of Felix Angelov on this subject, which is building Shorebird with Eric. And so that's how it works. You've got a custom boot when you build your app with Shorebird. It will check if there is a patch available remotely. If yes, download it. And next time your application will boot, you will have a patched version of your app. Eventually, if this patch doesn't work, it will reboot with the initial version of your code. And so once you've made a patch with Shorebird, you can either send directly to production, or you can activate it manually with a double validation. Just to make the link.
It's not so simple. You still have things to consider, especially how you interact with other systems.
Yes, we've mentioned the flexible upgrades. If your user has already downloaded a Shorebird patch, you should maybe not incite him to make another upgrade, because he will probably use already the latest version of your app. And so,
if you want to know more, Adrien, I think you shared
yes,
images with Shorebird on our GitHub. If you're interested, you'll find the links in the slides. Let's move on. As a conclusion about Shorebird, do you want to use it? Is it a great tool for you, for your business, for your use case? It depends.
It's a great tool to patch instantly your production. There is a very little size overhead for your final app. Just you have to think about the complexity overhead for your production team, for your ops. You can also think about the fact that it's a fork of Flutter. There will be associated cost because you will pay by patch installation on device. And actually, you can patch yet native code. It's only for Dart code, pure Dart code.
So there are many things to consider to see if it's fit your needs. But clearly, it's very seductive to this idea of being able to push instantly fixes or features without going through the traditional process of reviews, submitting to stores and everything. Great tool to know. And the last big step in this journey will be about feature flags. So maybe you feel feature flags, everybody knows, everybody uses feature flags. Why feature flags? Who's having feature flags in his app, her app? Yes, many of you. Why feature flags? And what does it change to this? At the beginning of last year, we had, and we still have, 50 to 100 stories and changes to push to production each week. They were deployed once a week. It took us 1 day to branch out, 3 days to test everything, because it was too risky to put 100 stories and just push to production. We have to test everything again. And this way, when we push to the web, we are in a mono repo, so we have the web, the backend, the mobile application, everything, the infrastructure, everything is deployed, released at the same time. But there was a difference between the time when we released the web and backend code and the mobile, because of the stores, the rollout, and everything. We wanted to be faster, to gain more speed, and finally we realized that to gain speed, what we needed really was safety, like traffic lights, the feature flags. So we introduced new kind of feature flags, feature toggles. So obviously, everybody is used to regular toggles acting as circuit breaker, long-lived. You put them in your application, and for each very large feature, or when you integrate a partner, you put a feature toggle to be able to disable in case of emergency. We also add A/B test experiments to perform experiments with the product. And we introduced what we called activation toggles. Very short-lived, very temporary, to be able, for each change, to put a toggle on it and push it disabled to production. I'll explain. The idea was to introduce these toggles for really every change, even bug fixes, putting a feature toggle on a bug fix. Everything, any change is then tested twice, disable. It must not cause a regression being disabled, of course, and enable, and moving from disable to enable to disable, everything must continue to work. It's always pushed disabled to production. This way, the activation, most of the impact of the change, it happens later, possibly days later. It's decoupled from the deployment. And after some time in production, once the production has proven stable, we remove this toggle, the temporary toggle. So if we look at the implementation, it's quite simple. That's our custom implementation.
Yes, we've built some guard for auto route navigation that will prevent us to navigate in a hidden path in the application. We use a qubit to propagate the feature toggle state, and we have local storage. And so our feature toggles are stored in a remote cloud database. And we've got a pretty simple implementation, but with timeouts, with streaming, with local storage, with sync and async evaluation of flags.
Yes. In the end, it's work. It has been some work to implement all of this, all these mechanisms to have something resilient, something efficient. Even if it looks pretty simple. We also have great developers like Mathieu Oleszowski who proposed a dashboard for developers to just check the feature toggles and enable or disable the toggles inside the application. In this example, we enabled the pedestrian guidance feature toggle, and then the itinerary is finer grained. So custom tools, custom implementation, it works quite well. And what was the result of that? At the end of the year, and now we have hundreds of these temporary activation toggles in production. We have been able to move from one major release per week to 3 and more per week, so that was great. Sometimes we even see stories which go from the development to production in 2 days or less than 2 days. Obviously, when I say several times almost one release per week, per day, sorry, it's about the web and backend code. Everything is released together, but it doesn't include the stores. So we still have one version published to the stores each week. But we'll see that we have the ability with the feature flags to activate things more continuously. And you have to notice that it was first seen as a kind of burden for developers, because for every change, adding a toggle, having a new routine to test it, everything, it was some complexity we added. Even if at the end of the year we could observe less rollbacks and less incidents. Incidents almost solved instantly thanks to these toggles. So it's a great way to work differently, to modify your release cycles. Now we feel the need for more tools, and we'll now finish with all the tools you can leverage for that. To use feature toggles at a large scale. So we first had a look at Firebase.
Yes, and I guess some of you are using Firebase remote config to make feature flags, to handle feature flags. We did not want to add a dependency to Firebase to our backend servers. We also tried to put some feedback on our feature flags in the custom keys of Firebase, but this is not the place you should put them. It's not adapted for hundreds of flags. But still, it's a great tool to monitor crashes and release propagations.
There are many feature management systems, platforms, products available on the market in the feature management landscape. One of them is Launch Darkly. We'll focus on it to show what it means to have a feature management platform. There are others like Split, A/B testing, and even open source solutions available to manage features, feature toggles at a large scale. Oh, I did it again, going back in time. There's even a standard now to instrument and interact with vendors about feature toggles, so don't hesitate to have a look. Openfeature.dev. This Launch Darkly, it's not the only solution, but what does it mean? It's a platform handling feature toggles, booleans, also string variations to perform A/B tests. You get a user interface to create and manage your flags. You get a SDK, so out of the box, you get an SDK to retrieve the toggles, and there's a SDK implementation for almost every language or platform you use, Flutter obviously. And you get an API, a CLI, extensions for your IDE, for Copilot, and more. What does it look like? This is an example of using the SDK.
Yes, it is the fourth version of the Launch Darkly Flutter SDK, and yes, what's great is that it will handle most of the complexity we previously seen with like background synchronization of your feature flags, offline mode. You've got a lot of metrics about the activation of your flags, etc.
So you get all these mechanisms out of the box, something resilient. And you can see here we have passed a correlation ID with the request, and we'll get back to it later. You can pass some context. You can pass things, and we'll use them in the feature management. Looking at the UI, it depends on the product you use. Obviously, on Launch Darkly, you'll have, for instance, this presentation of your feature flags per environment. You'll get features like creating pipelines of your features, for instance, rules to roll out your features from an environment to another, or say, okay, on this environment, only 10% of my users should see the feature, or maybe at this step, I want manual approval or more. Up again, yes. And that's time for the real-time demo.
Oh, yes.
Really quickly, I think we
Very
don't have
quickly,
much time
3 minutes,
left.
30 seconds. Okay. We'll try a live demo.
I wanted to show you something real.
We go crazy.
If
So
the
here
network
I'm
is with us.
enabling a feature flag called hero flag.
So on the right, you've got Launch Darkly, the feature management system. You can modify your flags, put a comment on it, maybe it needs some approval. And on the left, it's our application, and the logo has changed, right?
Yes, it has changed in live session. And so then I can go in a monitoring system, for example, Datadog. If I'm lucky, I may find my user. Well, it's a little bit.
You can integrate your feature management system with your
here.
monitoring system, and this way, when you have to analyze and something happens, you can see what was the value of the feature, are the results best with this value of the feature, etc.
How many times the activation was done, who has received which value, etc.
So it's interesting to know about these possibilities, to integrate tools, a feature management tool, a monitoring tool, and it can work the other way. I mean, you can feed the feature management system using the context, as we've seen from the SDK. You can feed the feature management system with your own metrics. For example, here, latency and errors from your application. And this way, you can even automate the rollout and ask the feature management system to roll out your feature to more and more users as long as the metrics doesn't degrade. So that's very powerful, and you can think of rolling out or rolling back automatically with your features. So these types of tools are very interesting to know. We didn't, in this case, the feature management system detected some regression on a metric, so it has removed, rolled back the feature. So we now use at the large scale these feature flags to activate feature toggles and features to our users. we now know that there are many tools available and many interesting possibilities of integration between our tools. So we want to go further now for the future. What could we do to go further? We could serve the features not only as we used to by environment, thinking features enabled or disabled per environment or per version of our application, but also per groups of users, per segments, providing information through the context. We could serve our features for different device types, for example, different user segments, different profiles of user, maybe their own preferences, asking our users to set their preferences, put them into the context, and deciding to give them more features or less features. And why not using the region, the location, the weather, anything. And we almost finished, and I never pronounced AI. So maybe using AI with all these parameters to decide which features to serve to each user. That's really inspiring. It goes with, we think, it might be seen as a kind of evolution of continuous delivery. Some people talk about progressive delivery. The idea is to focus less on environments and deployments and more on features and users and decoupling everything. In a larger organization, that's interesting because instead of having the technical, the DevOps teams and the business teams having to collaborate, to push and release at the best time for everyone, you can have the DevOps teams pushing continuously, that's continuous deployment, pushing the code, and having the business team activating this feature for this group, the totally decoupled manner. And we'll leave you with those open questions. When is the best time for you to push your updates? Is there a good time and a bad time to push your updates? Does it depend on you? Does it depend on your users? Imagine you develop an application, a Flutter application for navigation, and you have users driving and the road is awful and it's raining. Maybe it's really a bad moment to push an update and modify the UI. So you should care about that. Ask yourself, when is the good time to push updates? And maybe, oh, I can't see anything, but maybe choose a better time for your users to push the updates, to push the features. That's an open question. It's time to conclude. And at the end of this talk, we would like to remember the continuous delivery and DORA principle, so pushing small increments as often as possible and safely. The DORA metrics, fast and safe, both of us, not choosing one. To do that, you have to automate, obviously, everything.
You should also leverage the power of stores with the beta channels, the rollout modes, new tools like Shorebird for code push, and you should embrace feature flags and go beyond just deploy with progressive delivery. Think feature first for your users.
That's the end. That was the final part of our journey. We hope it was interesting. It gave you maybe ideas, inspiration. Don't hesitate to share your own stories. It's always welcome, always useful for the community. And since we speak about community, the community is probably the best thing with Flutter. So we are very lucky. We have great developers in our company. We work with them. We also are very lucky because we share regularly. We meet people from the Flutter team, the great Flutter team, always supportive, and the GDE, the experts, the great speakers, great people we meet at conferences. So our last word will be thank you very much for attending, for supporting such events as Flutter Heroes. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.